What's up, everybody? Welcome to Chatting with Chapman. I'm your host, Andre Chapman Jr., and I'm excited today because I have the pleasure of speaking to a World Championship qualifier for the men's singles in table tennis in 2014. He was a World Championship qualifier for the mixed doubles and the men's doubles in 2015. Again, a World Championship qualifier for the men's singles in 2016. Later in 2016, he went on to be an Olympic qualifier for table tennis, being the first American born in 2000 to qualify for the Summer Olympics. He was a World Championship qualifier for the men's singles in 2017, then went on and won a bronze medal in 2018 in the Summer Youth Olympics. In 2019, he won his fourth straight U.S. national title and then went on to win bronze medal at the 2019 Pan American Games in mixed doubles and singles. He's a 2020 Tokyo Olympic qualifier, a 2021 World Championship qualifier for men's singles, placing fifth in the men's singles. In the mixed doubles, he placed ninth. In the mixed doubles, he placed ninth, excuse me, and he was a men's double qualifier as well. In 2024, he won his fifth U.S. national title, securing his spot for the 2024 Tokyo Olympics. Sorry, for the 2024 Paris Olympics. My bad, my bad. He made history when he secured the U.S. its best Olympic run in the men's table tennis by reaching the last 16 at the Paris Games. And just recently, he secured his first ever U.S. Open men's single title with an impressive victory at the 2024 U.S. Open Table Tennis Championships in Las Vegas. Welcome, Kanak Jha. How you doing, man?
Hey, thanks, Andre. Pleasure to be here. I see you've done your research these last years. It was nice for me to hear as well.
Yeah, man. I really love my guests to feel the weight of what they've done and the accomplishments that they've achieved. You know, it's no easy task. So I like all my guests to feel honored.
Definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So as I was sharing before, I started this podcast because I want it to be a place where athletes, coaches, and parents can come and learn about the mental side of sports from some of the most elite athletes in the country. So much is known about the physical side of sports, and I want to create awareness on the mental side of sports. So I'm happy to have you, and I know this is going to be a great episode.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. And like you said, definitely the mental side is everything, especially in the higher level in sports. As kids, most of us we learn all the technical aspects from our coach as much as we can, the physical side, the techniques, the movements, the physical training, but the mental side is it's overlooked a lot, especially in the early years, and happy to share and possibly help a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So my first question is, starting from a young age and progressing, what have been some of the greatest mental skills that you've developed that have helped you the most?
Yeah, I mean, t table tennis, first of all, for those who don't know, I like to consider it kind of a sport that's mixed. A lot of people say mixed between chess and boxing. I think that is a good way to compare it. It's an incredibly technical sport. The techniques and footwork are very advanced, and it takes years to reach even a high level. But also the mental side is very important sport. It's a very tactical sport. You have a mix between you're trying to impose your own game, your own style, as it's a sport with many different styles, as well as always be one step ahead of your opponent. Um, my mental side aspect, I'm still developing it through the years. It's something I didn't think about much when you're younger. I think it's quite normal when you're kids. You kind of just play fearless, you fight, you don't really think so much. But as I've gotten older, I've taken a really different approach on the mental aspect. I think the biggest thing, if I just say one to begin with, is being aware of
Mhm.
everything around. It's a quick sport, table tennis, and you have to be aware of everything going on around you. Be aware of your own feelings when you're feeling too excited, too emotional, or whether you're feeling too calm. You have to instinctively recognize that in yourself, as well as be aware of what your opponent is doing, so you can adapt on the go. You can't afford to lose any time in this sport. So that's something I've taken a big focus on, and I've done maybe a few different things to work on that.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say are some of those things that you've done to help you improve?
I think for me, I take a very analytical approach to the sport. Like I said, table tennis it's a bit of a complex sport. I recommend anybody who hasn't seen it ever to maybe give it a shot on YouTube. If you want, Google my name or Google the sport, and maybe you'll be a bit impressed because it's a bit different from the recreational ping pong.
It's fast,
It is very fast.
very
It's
fast.
very fast and a lot of spin. But for me, the match always starts the days leading up to the competition, but specifically the day before is when I'm really locked in. So it's a mix. So what I'm before the match, what I'm focusing on a lot is what I can do to bring my own best game to the table. For me, I focus a lot on being patient, seeing exactly like I said what's going on. I need to make sure my mental frame is the best. I'm not doing anything stressful before the match. I'm sorry about the sound.
Oh, I can't hear anything. You're good.
You're good? Okay. And as well as meditate. I like to meditate quite a bit. It's something I've developed over the years. That's played a big factor in my awareness side of the sport because when you're meditating, I do a form of mindfulness where I'm trying to just be completely in the present, not think about too much exterior thoughts, what's going on, be completely in my present, focus on the physical senses, and that keeps you in the now moment. And that's something that's really important, I think, in sports in general, because you can get caught up in the thoughts and lose track of what's going on.
Spot on, man. In a lot of the interviews and a lot of the work that I do with my athletes, that is the number one component is the mindfulness piece. It's how can you, like you said, have awareness for the emotions that you're feeling and not allow them to, dictate what it is that you want to do or control what it is that's happening in the moment, but just recognize them, but still stay in the present so that it's not interfering with your game. I've never heard table tennis described as a mix between chess and boxing. That's really cool. Where did you hear that, and why do you think that that's applicable?
I think it was something somebody in the sports said, perhaps a commentator or another player when I was young, and then it just really resonated with me. I was like, damn, that's actually a really good comparison. Table tennis, it's a very fast sport, similar to boxing. You need incredibly fast reaction times, as
Yeah.
well as being able to think in the moment, such as boxing, seeing what your opponent is doing. Everyone in boxing has a different style. Everyone in table tennis has a different style. Of course, in table tennis, you're not getting punched in the face, but similar consequences in terms of results, win or lose. And for the chess aspect, chess is a sport where there's a sport with no luck involved. Chess, it's a game purely on the mind. You're trying to be always one step ahead of your opponent, as well as focusing on your own tactics. Something I think chess is a little bit similar in that way. So I found that a really good mix, and a good comparative level table tennis is.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. And I can go off on this tangent about mindfulness, which I promise you we will do. But one of the things that you said is one of the ways that you get prepared for matches, it sounds like, is really focusing on execution as opposed to being so fixated on the result, right? It sounded as if one of the things that you do is you think about what are the things that you need to do in this match to be successful, right? You don't do anything stressful before, you're just kind of like preparing for that. Can you touch a little bit more on that?
Sure. Yeah, I get actually incredibly stressed in general during matches. I think stress is something, it's not something you can really avoid in sports. It's something that you need to learn how to deal with in general. And that's what makes top athletes perhaps perform the best at the brightest lights, while others maybe shrink away to the brightest lights, how they deal with the stress, because it's impossible to avoid stress in the sports. That's something kind of not correct. And maybe they tell kids many times, oh, you gotta stay away from the stress. But yeah, to go back to your question, you said one more time if you can
Yeah, no,
read
no,
it.
no. I said, like one of the things that you do is you focus on execution, it sounds like, as opposed to I have to win, I have to win, I have to win. Can you just talk a little bit about that, like the focus on the execution before the match and making sure that you're getting your mind in that space?
For sure. I mean, I like to, like I said, I've quite a very analytical mind. my preparation before the match is quite intense. I think even among table tennis athletes at the highest level, I spend a lot of time visualizing my own game. I have a notebook I carry with me wherever I go with pages full of little reminders I like to think about in the match, different things, whether it's my technique stuff I'm thinking about or my mental aspect, constantly reminding so it never slips my mind, as well as a very extensive review of my opponent. So that's the two things I like to juggle together before the match, making sure I'm bringing my best game to the table. Just keep in mind and remind myself going through my notes what I do that makes me such a great player, as well as what I need to be in the state in mentally to be ready for the match. And then mix that together with making sure I'm aware of what my opponent is trying to do. And those are the two things I'm juggling back and forth in my mind constantly through the preparation. So I'm not really thinking too much about the emotions or the stuff around. That naturally obviously plays a factor and it's something you're going to feel. But that's why I like to keep it more on the analytical side. And then, of course, when the match starts, when you're so locked in on your tactics, on your own game and the opponent's game, it's also easier to see and be adapt to what's happening during the match. Because of course, like I said, it's like a chess game, and the tactics are constantly adapting through the match.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to chat with somebody who does come from the more analytical background. So I'm fascinated by what you're saying. And when you were describing it, I saw like three different columns. One is kind of like a hype sheet to brag about yourself. One is understanding what are the tactics and the execution that needs to happen in the match. And then the third is all the information that you know about your opponent so that you can be prepared for anything that they throw at you.
Absolutely. And like I said, it is still very emotional, especially when you reach into higher tournaments. I mean, at the end of the day, we're professional athletes. We're fighting for our salaries. We're fighting for our livelihood and representing the people around us. So it can be heavy on the shoulders, of course. I find having an analytical mind though in the match, it comes along a lot with the mindfulness that I work on. So
Mm.
I'm very aware of my own thoughts. It's really easy to lose track of what you're trying to do, your tactics, what the opponent's doing, and you just want to fight. You're just emotional. You're getting there's possibly you get angry during the match or you're feeling too negative. So the mindfulness really helps me there where I'm really able to keep tune in my emotions. When I'm feeling too excited, too, I guess I can directly subconsciously pick it up in my mind and okay, calm down a bit. And when I'm feeling too calm, other way around. And I find after the match that's very helpful because when I was younger, it's hard to properly analyze a match after when you're so emotional during the match because you can't really remember how you were thinking during the match. Okay, why did I make this service at 9-9? I don't even know why because I wasn't thinking really clearly. But when you have an analytical mind, it's much easier to look back on the match unemotionally and just see the match for what it was. And that helps you, of course, always improve quicker than other players because the feedback is so key.
Yeah, you're not staying down too long when a match doesn't go your way, but you're thinking back to see how can I make sure that when I come in across the situation again in the future, I don't encounter this same mistake or I don't do this same thing that I did that cost me. Can you talk a little bit about like what is the hype sheet for to remind yourself about like, all of the great things that you do? Can you share a little bit about the significance of that?
Yeah, confidence is a huge thing in sports. I mean, that confidence makes or breaks athletes many times. That's why generally leading into a big tournament, you're trying to become you play perhaps smaller tournaments to grow the confidence and grow the awareness and match feeling. Right before the match, like I said, I don't really hype myself up. I think naturally through the years my confidence has grown. I don't really shrink away from pressure. I have incredibly high confidence in my abilities and myself, and that also comes through years of accomplishments in the sport. It's focusing more on my game, very precisely two things. Like I said, the technical movements that I like to think about during my match. Um, it's about 5, 6 pages actually, so it's quite long, but I read them very quick because I'm reading them and reading it every day. And then the mental aspect, there's a few different kind of rituals I like to do before the match to make sure I'm in the right mental state.
Yeah, yeah. You shared a little bit about the mindfulness, and I want to talk about how you prepare for these larger situations, which it sounds like it is through meditation. But I want to also take a step back and understand, how did you get into meditation? How were you introduced to it, and how did that then become a habit for you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm incredibly interested in all aspects of, I think, human, how would you say, biohacking, brain development, the physical side. It's just so interesting to me, the way humans can become the best versions of themselves. And it's a lot through my own individual research, to be honest. I love to listen to podcasts. There's so many podcasts like yours nowadays talking about so many topics. Perhaps we didn't have access to this kind of information before. Um, I, Easier also as you get to higher levels of athletes, you're constantly surrounded by the highest level athletes, and a lot of the times you pick up things from them that you think about. You know, maybe this guy's he's doing something. I say, oh, that's interesting. I can try implementing that to my own practice schedule and see how I like it. Everybody has a different mindset. Everybody has a different mind, especially in the sport of table tennis, which is very unique in terms of the styles. But it's been kind of a process of trial and error, of trying different things out. I got into meditation. I was very young, and I quit for a long time. I said, this is bullshit. It's not doesn't do anything." But
Yeah.
I really got back into it after hearing what other athletes talk about it and hearing some podcasts. I specifically use an app called Waking Up by Sam Harris,
Mhm.
and I found that one has been really, really helpful compared to other meditation apps.
Yeah. How long do you meditate for?
I generally do not long, about 10 minutes a day.
Yeah.
We're quite busy as athletes, so it's not easy to spend too much time on that stuff. But before the match as well is before the match, I'm generally the warm up for a table tennis match is about 2 hours before the match, so it's quite long compared to other sports. And generally, what I like to do is I warm up for about an hour on the table, and then the last 45 minutes is just more focusing on myself and my thoughts.
Wow. Wow. And so when you think about being a three-time Olympian, man, first of all, congrats, because you're only 24 years old. So maybe, yeah, 24. So to be a three-time Olympian, I'm sure you've learned a lot along the journey and have discovered different tools and tips for each time you step into these high pressure moments and situations. What are some of the things besides meditation, or if it's only been meditation, that you've learned and discovered throughout your journey for these three different Olympics?
Yeah, so in the sport of table tennis, the Olympics is the biggest event. It is the highest of highs. Being from the USA, it's the only time in our country the sport is shown on the mainstream media, and it's given perhaps more attention than it's given any other time of the year. Not quite the same for other countries where the sport's bigger, but as well as the fact that the chance in many ways representing your country, of course, you're
Mhm.
representing the people around you. Financially, it's a huge opportunity with the eyes on you. So Olympics is the highest of highs in our sport, just to clarify. I think I've become as you mature, I mentioned already, I'm more aware of emotion. I like to use the crowd also to my advantage.
Mm.
There's so much energy in
Yeah.
a packed arena. You know, it's very you must find a balance between getting too excited and losing track of your own losing track of your own emotions, but at the same time it's so nice to use energy there. When I was younger, perhaps in the Rio Games, Tokyo was a little bit unique as there was no crowd with COVID, but in general, World Championships, Olympics, the big events with big crowds. Before I used to try to cut them off completely, not really use the crowd in my own way. Say, okay, don't think about them, focus on my own game. But now I like the balance between using my emotion, but also using the crowd's energy to lift me up, and that's something perhaps I've changed in the years since I was younger.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you share a time when you were mentally in a slump and things were not going your way, and how you overcame that, and what tools or what was the most helpful for you on that journey?
Yeah. I've gone through some difficult periods, like I've said. I moved abroad when I was 15 years old. I left my home in California and I moved to Europe. So there have been difficult times along the way. Individual sports in general can be a bit lonely, especially on the higher levels. I think it's hard for people to relate sometimes to what you're going through, and it's very easy to fall to feel down, like you said. It's a performance sport, like all sports. You're constantly under pressure. People are expecting you to perform. Perhaps you've signed a contract with your club. They have expectations of you, your sponsors, and in the end of the day, you are a human being, of
Yeah.
course. Everything around you affects your performance on the table, and it's easy. I think a lot of coaches say, you have to find a way to figure out who you are off the table and not let your results on the table determine your mood. So, example, if you're playing bad, don't feel too down off the table, have other hobbies. I've always not really related to that. I
Hmm.
think when you're a high level professional athlete, at the end of the day, the way you're performing is going to determine your mood a lot. That's just how it is. Your identity is so closely wrapped with your sport for a long time. I know many athletes struggle after their career with those problems as they've never really done anything outside the sport. So it is kind of a balance for me. It's hard to reach the top of the ladder if you're not that way. You don't really
Yeah.
have time to do other things in your life when you're a full-time athlete trying to reach the pinnacle.
Yeah.
So I think I struggle a lot. I would say honestly, my career has been very lucky. I've had many fortunate people in my life. I've gone, like you kind of said in the beginning, it's been a really high level trajectory in my career. I think I pride myself. I'm a very hard worker. I don't really very disciplined, so it's gone well. During the COVID year, it was a big struggle for myself. That
Mm.
was the really toughest time I've had. Um, I was moved to a new club in Germany where I play full time, and it was a new club. During COVID, everything was shut down. Didn't really know the people there very well, and I couldn't go home as well due to the quarantine rules and my obligations in Europe. So I was there about 13 months by myself,
Wow.
and yeah, I really struggled at that moment. I was playing truly awful, and but like I said, it was very connected to my mental state. I mean, I was so down, it's almost impossible then to play well on the table. And I mean, what got me through it? It's tough to say there's one thing. I think in general, I like to say you have to survive the bad times and not get too high on the good times. But you just got to keep reminding yourself how far you've gone to reach this stage and not let yourself go too down to the point where there's no coming back. Just always understand it is a tough time. There's probably not so much people can do to help you when you're going through a slump, especially sometimes there seems there's no light at the end of the tunnel in those regards. I went home after those 13 months. I took some time off to sport, spent a lot of time with family, and yeah, I think step by step I started to recover and get back to where I was. And it's incredible how fast things can change as well, as long as you keep going.
Yeah. I can't imagine, man, moving away at such a young age to pursue this, right? I can imagine the ups and downs of moving and playing internationally and having to deal with everything over there. And then, COVID happens and now you're stuck by yourself having to quarantine and still, try to play in some capacity. I can imagine coming back and being with your family was like a breath of fresh air and kind of like a grounding moment, but also like a restart for you.
Definitely, definitely. Was a big reset for myself. I think I've always considered myself quite lucky. I mean, there's a lot of people going through tough situations, tough circumstances. I've gone through periods where I feel down, but I always remind myself also the good things I have in life. I'm following a passion that I love. I'm earning money from it. I have people in my life to take that have really helped me a lot off the table. So also remind yourself of everything you have because that also keeps you a bit more grounded.
Yeah. You mentioned taking some time away from table tennis. What were some of the things that you were doing during that period?
Yeah, it was quite fortunate in a way because I got injured that time. So maybe the timing lined up in a way because
Yeah.
forced myself to take time away from the sport. And having good people around you is very important. That was my first year. Also, I mentioned COVID. I lived alone. Since then, I haven't really lived alone too much. Like I said, it can be very lonely at times. You're playing an individual sport. Pressure is often very high. So surrounding yourself with good people, not taking the sport too heavily, especially in periods that are less critical, not during big events, to take time also to enjoy is something that I worked on through the years.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question is how do you maintain the fun of the sport? Because being by yourself, right, table tennis being more of an individual sport, it can be challenging because you don't always have the teammates to bounce off of good energy with. It's just really you and your mind. And sometimes your mind can, take you places where it's now an immense amount of pressure, et cetera, et cetera. How do you maintain that fun? And is that fun important for you for longevity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in t table tennis, we're training incredibly long hours from very young ages. So you almost feel like your life to a degree is the hall and where you sleep. And I think when you're younger, when I was younger, I mean, I love the sport. I love it more than anything else in life. So it's always been a bit easier for me, perhaps than others, to have that kind of lifestyle. But that lifestyle is only really possible when you're younger. Of course, when you get older, you can't just live in the hall and be in sleep because that's not a it's not a healthy life.
Hmm.
Um, Also not something that's sustainable long term. Um, so it's a lot also making sure you're in a place in your life where you're happy, whether that's you're living in a place you feel good, um, having people around you that you feel comfortable with, and I want to play the sport, of course, for as long as I can.
Hmm.
Uh, Not just because of the financial reason, but also because I love it so much. And you see a lot of athletes. I've seen a lot of athletes in my sport too, and they burn out very quick. Even their early 20s, their mid 20s, their late 20s, especially the Asian players who train extremely hard, they burn out. So it's finding that balance because you want to play the sport for as long as you can. And I've taken more into consideration things in my lifestyle outside the table, not just the best training groups or this is the best place to be in terms of the practice level, but also, okay, do I enjoy living here? How's the situation in general, stuff outside? So that all because that plays a huge factor into your mindset, which is daily mindset. Otherwise, like I said, it's easy to fall down, and when you're down, it's very hard to get back up. So always trying to maintain that balance between not going too high on the highs and not being too low on the lows.
Hmm. Hmm. You mentioned something earlier about um, after you came back from COVID, you actually haven't lived on your own since.
Yeah, I mean, um, table tennis, we're a 365-day year-round sport. We don't really have an off season. But yeah, I live with a roommate, a good friend of mine. I train in Germany full time. Um, and it helps just in general because living in foreign countries sometimes, there are challenges. People don't speak the same language as you. Even small things, culture is different, holidays are different. You go outside, you see billboards in a language that's not your own. So you don't want to go feel too alone. You're already alone on the table so
Hmm.
many hours a day. So I found that for myself, I'm pretty social. I like to be a social guy outside the table, and that's also helped me keep my mind healthy.
Yeah, man. No, kudos to you. When I was training for track, that was one of the biggest things is I was glad that I was able to live with family and live with people where I didn't feel alone because that alone feeling it can come and like you said earlier, it's very hard to get up when you're down. And so I'm happy that uh, you were able to find somebody to live with so that it's not just like you, your thoughts and the sport just by yourself.
Yeah, I think in general, sports, the locker room environment is a huge part of what you love about the sport. Sports in general, for myself in my career, a lot of the best memories, of course, outside the table is the general life and being around people who are following a similar passion to you. They're often different backgrounds, but you have same love. And
Hmm.
I think that's also something a lot of athletes miss when they retire. They talk about how they miss that locker room environment, team sports as well, football, basketball, being around your buddies and your teammates all the time. That's something that's incredibly important also for the mindset because I think if, for us for people in general, the social aspect is huge and perhaps something lacking a bit for many people today.
Man, when I was the type of athlete that put so much pressure on myself, and what was helpful was having teammates who could balance me out and say, "Hey, man, just relax, chill out. Like, let's have a good time." And so the locker room, the traveling with friends, all that provided that natural balance, and it was fun. And now that I'm away from the sport, like you said, that is one of the main things that I miss is
Yeah.
that camaraderie and that just being surrounded by people who are so eager to continue to improve and develop and support you in that regard. So I resonate with that spot on.
Yeah, I think as well in table tennis, it's something I've been quite fortunate. Perhaps I've been able to, with my name, and help invite people to training groups I'm a part of, and I take a lot of care in curating a very good environment around me. It's not just the athlete in his level as his level on the table that I think about. It's who he is as a person and how that his personality and his beliefs mix in with the group and together create a really thriving and positive mindset because that's something incredibly important as well, like I said, and like you said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How do you balance the internal pressure, right? And then I also want to talk about external pressure because you're breaking barriers that haven't been broken before for men's tennis. So how do you navigate those two pressures? And you can start with the external or you can start with the internal, whichever one.
External pressure is something that it took me some time to learn about. It's funny because when you're the sport, it goes so quick for you. I was in the cadets, which is under 15, and I was a big talent at that point. In the juniors as well, I was a big talent. And those at that point, you're really young, and you don't have the same outlook on the sport. I mean, I was young. I just love the sport. I love competing. When you lose in the seniors, I was already good in juniors. When you lose in the senior, it doesn't really matter. It's not your event. I wasn't really a professional at the time. I was still getting perhaps support generally from sponsors and others, but I mean, wasn't I didn't see it the same way I do now, where it's also there is a part of it that a big part of it that it's a job as well. You are fighting for your salary, you are fighting for your for future, and also to take care of the people around you. So that is also a lot of internal pressure, and then I think the external pressure is also something you start to feel more when you're older as you go to higher people, perhaps in many ways, people pay you more, have more expectations of you from sponsors, from your club. And it's very easy to feel crushed by that because
Mhm.
so it changes really quick, especially if you reach a high level, perhaps at a young age, like I did, wasn't really prepared mentally for that. So I like to just I kind of like to tell myself just fuck everyone else, when I'm
Mhm.
before the match. I like to really lock in on myself, remind myself of everything I've been through in my journey, um, the hardships I've gone through. That this is my journey. At the end of the day, it's nobody else's journey, and then it helps you also become a lot more free in general because you're not worried too much about people's opinions of you. So that's
Mhm.
something I like to just not worry about that at all, and be you regardless of the win or lose. Then it's a lot easier to keep going and not ever feel crushed by it. Otherwise, when you're playing good and everybody's praising you, you'll be on a very high, but suddenly when you're losing, people are maybe talking worse about you. General fans are fickle. People in general can be very fickle in their supports. And then you feel really low. So that's not a healthy approach, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the number one thing I tell the athletes that I work with is don't let the highs take you too high and don't let the lows take you too low. Remaining even keel is the best way that you want to be.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah. And then how do you balance the internal pressure that you put on yourself?
I've actually never struggled so much with internal pressure.
Okay.
I gain a lot of confidence going into matches, knowing how much effort I put in.
Mm,
I like to believe I'm one of the harder working athletes in the sport, not just on the table, but also in terms of, like I said, the analytical side, watching myself, watching opponents, always taking feedback on what I'm doing, trying to surround myself with very high level coaches that I trust. It also helped me improve faster by seeing things I don't notice. And that gives me a lot of confidence going into matches. And it also gives me perhaps more relief when I'm not playing well because I I know I know I've done everything I could to be performing at my best, and I'm a lot older now than when I first started this professional journey. I'm 24, so I know regardless of the effort put in, you can't always be playing well. There are periods where you're struggling and periods you're playing well, and that's more comes from experience, knowing how to not get too high on the highs and low on the lows.
yeah, yeah. It's funny because you said now that I'm a little bit older, but you are still only 24, but that just speaks to the longevity that you've had in this sport. And one of the things that you talked about that I want to touch on a little bit more is just the importance of practice and practicing at a level that prepares you to compete at these high levels. Can you share a little bit about your practices?
Yeah, so I mean, generally in table tennis, as I said many times, it's a very technical sport. It's really important, especially in this sport, to surround yourself with high quality coaches. And in the early age when you're a kid, there's a bit of luck involved with that, as you don't really have control over who's
Mhm.
coaching you. But my training in general is varies, of course, depending on my competition schedule. But on a normal training day, it's about 5 to 6 hours on the table, as well as a lot of mobility and then strength work as well to keep my body healthy and stronger. So those are the two things I'm focusing on a day to day, and the mental aspect is really important. I like to say that table tennis, the training day is not just the 6 hours you're on the table or the six and the 2 hours you're at the gym. It's just 24-hour thing. It's analyzing how the practice went before the training, making sure you know what you're working on, you know things you want to implement in this training session, and always having a plan of what you're doing because then you're taking the most out of your time because you see a lot of athletes, they train years and years and they train so hard, but they don't really improve. They kind of just do the same things over and over again. And no matter how hard you train, if you're making the same mistakes over and over again, there's no real improvement. So that's the thing I try to really nail down on making sure I'm always working on things on the table and not just showing up to the hall and putting in the physical hours. And you can sweat 8 shirts and think you did a good job, but if you didn't really use the training effectively, then you won't improve long term.
Yeah, yeah. It's important to grow from each encounter, each practice, each match, and then take that information and then use that for the next practice so you can continue improving. I'm working with two table tennis athletes right now. One is 10 and one is 11. And one of the things that we're working on is recovering when you make a mistake on the court. Can you
Mhm.
share just any tidbits or tips or tools on how to bounce back from when you make that mistake? Because like you said, it's so fast. So if you're sitting there stressed and worried about the play that just happened and the ball that you just missed, you're going to miss the next ball. Can you
Mhm.
share a little bit about that?
Yeah, table tennis, it's a sport that goes so quick. We're only playing to 11 points. If you
Mhm.
lose focus for even 2 minutes, you can lose the set and you won't even if you won't even know what happened. It feels like just a bullet hit you. So I like to before the match, regardless of my shape, I tell myself mistakes will be made. Mistakes perhaps you do shots you don't want to miss. The first step you have to accept it right away on the spot. You can't get too emotional about it, too angry. Accept you make a mistake, think about why the mistake happened, and then move on. That's keep it simple, you know. Don't you can't get locked in the past. Oh, I should have made this shot or why did I lose focus here? Otherwise, it's gone, the match already. So a big thing is accepting when you're, especially when you're not playing well. Just accept you're not playing well and focus on what I can do to still take this match somehow. Because not every match is going to be pretty. Not every match you're going to play your best.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of my last questions is if you could give advice to your younger self on the mental side of table tennis, what would you say?
I've touched on it before. I think two things that have been important in my career is the awareness side, the mindfulness side, as well as not letting the external pressure getting to you, not letting people's expectations rub off on you. And those two things I think have been really important in my career.
Got you. Got you. Well, I do this thing called rapid fire questions. You have 30 seconds to answer five questions. And I know table tennis goes really fast, so we'll see how fast this goes. I think I know the answer to number one, but I'm still going to ask it. And I start the clock. I'm pulling it up right now. I start the clock the moment I ask the first question. Are you ready?
Okay, the pressure's on.
Yeah, the pressure's on, man. All right. What is your go-to pregame hype song?
Lose yourself, Eminem.
What's your favorite cheat meal?
Ooh, I don't really have a sugar crush. Let's say burger. I don't really consider any cheat meals, but sure, let's say a burger.
Okay, what's your favorite off-day hobby?
Ooh, if I'm home, it's hanging out with my dog. Otherwise, probably podcasting, YouTube
Okay.
podcast.
If you could relive one moment from your career, what would it be?
The 2018 Youth Olympic Games.
What is the best advice you've been given? Timer went off,
You
by the way, but keep
got-
going.
I missed it, huh? So still want an answer? Or,
Yeah, I still want the answer for sure.
like I said, I like this phrase, you got to have crocodile skin, not let anything get into you.
Hmm. I like that. I like that, man. Before we close, I want to ask if there is anything that you wanted to say or feel inclined to say that you may not have gotten a chance to say while we were chatting.
Um, I mean, for all the people playing sports in general, the most important thing, regardless of what everything we spoke about, is to love the game. You love the game, and all the struggles, all the different aspects become much easier because if that's what you're passionate about, you will find a way regardless. And you work hard, you're passionate, you love it. That's already the most important step on your journey.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank
I
you so much.
appreciate you and thanks for chatting. Don't go anywhere. I'm just going to close this out, but I do just want to say thank you.
No worries. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. All right, guys.